Hey guys, welcome to my channel Linux King. My name is Salman Francis, and in today's video we will take a look at YAML file content in Kubernetes. So YAML stands for yet another markup language, and we can use .yml or .yaml extensions for YAML file. In Kubernetes, we use YAML file for task automation, and entries in YAML file are of key value pair. For example, a key has a value after colon and a space and then the value. So for example, name, you can see it's a key and then a colon and then Salman is the value of that key. So let's see what are the main component of YAML file in Kubernetes and how to automate the task with them. So there are four main components of Kubernetes YAML file. That's API version, kind, metadata, and specs. So what is an API version? API version defines the API of the object. So this means which version of Kubernetes API we are using to create the object. For example, the examples of object are pods, services, deployment, etc. And some useful commands to check the API version are kubectl API-versions, kubectl API-resources for the groups, then kubectl explain pod. This example is to show what API version pod uses. And for more documentation, you can refer to kubernetes.io website. So basically what we are going to do is, let me just go back to the slide and let me show you these commands here. So kubectl API-versions, and this will show you as explained here that what API versions are supported by our cluster. So here it's telling you that what kind of versions is supported by a cluster, like v1 beta, v1, this is for pods, apps for v1 and stuff like that. Okay, then we have kubectl API-resources -API-group apps-o wide, and this is going to give us the information about apps group. So here you can see these are the apps, and this is the information, like let me just try to make it a little bigger. And here you can see that the API groups for app is that the namespace it's using, and what is the kind, it's a deployment, replica set, blah blah blah, all the information. Okay, then we have a very good command. It's like kubectl explain pod. Okay, what it does is it gives you the explanation about a pod, and from here we can also check what kind of version a pod use. And for example, here you can see the kind is the pod and what kind of version it uses. It uses v1. So this is how you can get information about the pod and also the API version. Okay, so for further information, you can always visit kubernetes.io/docs-reference using -API. Okay, so next main content of YAML file in Kubernetes is kind. So kind basically defines what kind of object we want to create. Okay, and examples of objects, as already told you, that pod, deployment, services, these are examples of object. Then the fourth important content type is metadata, and this data that helps uniquely identify the object. So these are you can say the qualities of an object, and with the help of metadata we can define such as name, string, UID, optional namespaces which are responsible for configuring behavior of the resources within the cluster. So these all are defined inside the metadata. Then the specs, and specs basically it defines behavior of the service. As an example, below we can see a container, and here we can see that there's the container name. Okay, then the image, then ports. For example, specs, it's like a specification, like it's a container with the name, with an image, what kind of port it's using, what kind of protocol it's using. So these are the specification of the image, or sorry, of the container which we are creating. Okay, and for more information regarding the specs, we will issue the command kubectl explain service.specs. So let's use that, kubectl explain service.spec, and here it will give you information about here. So kind is service, version is v1, spec, and spec defines the behavior of a service. So you can read this information. Okay, let's move forward. And now these are some more content types, but these are not the main contents. So first we are going to check what is a replica. So replica sets purpose is to maintain a stable set of replica pods running at any given time. So it means that the replicas of the pods which are running at any given time, the replica set makes sure that they are stable. So let's say if one pod goes down, replica set makes sure that another pod takes place as soon as it possible. Please note that deployments are made of replica sets and replica sets are made of pods. Then there are labels and selectors, and they are used to tell the deployment which pods are part of the deployment. So with the help of label, you can label anything, any application, and with the selector, you can call that label. So that we will take a look in our demo. Okay, now we are going to create a pod with a YAML file. So let's go to our demo machine. And here I am going to create a pod. So let's call it nginx-100.yml. And here the API version. And you know that it's a key value pair. So first the key and then the value, and it's version 1. And then the kind is, okay, you know what? Let's create the main content and then we can fill that up. Metadata, then spec. So we have 4 main contents, and now kind is pod. Remember, it's with a capital P. Then metadata. So it's going to be a name, and the name is nginx-100. Okay, and then we have the specs or spec, and it's a container type. And then there's a list. So name is going to be nginx-container-100, we can call it. Okay, and then the image which we are going to use is nginx. Okay, and I think I hope that will be fine. So let's create it with kubectl-create, and the file name is nginx-100. And perfect, the pod is created. So let's check kubectl get pods-oy. And here you can see that it's running on our worker 2. Okay, and if you remember, I told you how to connect with the pod. If you don't remember, so we can connect with the pod with kubectl exec it interactive and the terminal, and with the pod, and the name is nginx-100, and I want a bash shell. Alright guys, so we are in the shell, and here we can check so it's an nginx. You can see that Linux nginx, and here it's enterprise Linux 7. Okay, and so we are in the pod. Okay, let me exit from the pod. Okay, perfect. So here kubectl get pods, and we can see that our nginx-100 is running. Okay, so now what's next? Creating a deployment with YAML files. So in this example, we will create a deployment. So with 2 replica sets, replicas, I mean. So we have already created the pod, and now kubectl get deployments, and we can see we have 3 deployments here: httpd, Jenkins, and by the way, we will be starting Jenkins also. So that's going to be our Jenkins video will be after Kubernetes. Okay, so now what we are going to do is, but we have a lot of things to cover in Kubernetes anyway, because we need to cover volumes, we need to cover traffic like ingress, a lot of things. Anyway, so let's first complete this video. So now we are going to create the deployment, and to do that, first thing is we are going to use nginx deploy.yml file, nginx deploy.yml. Okay, and now we know that the deployments have the version of apps-v1 or v1 beta. So to get that information, let's check that. kubectl explain deploy. So here you can see that extension /v1 beta 1, you can also use this for deployment, and apps/v1, you can also use that. So we are going to use apps. It doesn't matter, by the way. So API version is apps/v1, kind, then metadata, then spec. Okay, so these things, 4 content which are important, we have already created, and now we are going to use the values. So it's a kind is the deployment. Okay, metadata is going to be like what is the name, and the name is going to be, let's call it nginx deployment, and replica sets -2. Okay, and then here comes the labels. So labels basically define what kind of app we are creating for, like this deployment, what kind of apps are part of this deployment. So the apps are going to be my ERP or my CRM, you can call it. Okay. Yeah, that's it. So label, we have defined our app type. So it's my CRM. And basically this label, once we create the label, with the help of the selector, we can call this label. So now we are going to go into our specs. So it's going to use a template. Okay. And now the metadata here. So the metadata is name, and it's going to be nginx dash pod 3000, we can call it. This is the name. Okay, and the label is going to be my CRM. Okay, and now just make sure this next spec, because we are creating a template for a pod. Okay, so the template has a metadata, and the name of the pod is going to be nginx pod 3000, and the label it's going to use, we are labeling it with app of my CRM, and then we are going to give it a spec. So it should just come after this. And it's a container. And then it's a list. So name is nginx dash deployment replica of 2. Image is going to be nginx. How many replicas we want, and we want 2. And here is the selector, and selector will match the label with my ERP or my CRM. Okay, now let me explain you what's happening here. So the API version is apps v1, kind is deployment, metadata for this deployment right now. The name is nginx deployment with replica set 2. You can call it anything. Okay, and the label which we are defining for this is my CRM. So app is my CRM, and the specs have a sub value, like you can say a sub portion of template. And with this template, we are defining again in this template a metadata, and the name is going to be, this template is for the pod. So with the help of this template, we will create a pod, and then what will happen? And nginx with the name of nginx pod 3000 will be created with the label of app type my CRM. And this template has the spec also, and it's a type of container. We already know that. And the name is of this container is going to be nginx-dep rep2. You can call it anything. Image type which we will be using is nginx, and the replicas. Okay, now look at this thing. So now this is out of this spec. Okay, so here you can see that our replica is not part of this spec. Here you can see that. Okay, only this spec, this container image, and the name is part of this spec. However, replicas are part of this deployment. So the deployment will have 2 replicas. And now this selector, what it's going to do is it's going to call whenever we will run this deployment. So this selector will match the label and check with this app like this label, okay, which we have created. So let's check if we have successfully created our deployment. So kubectl get deployments. We can see that we have only 3 deployments at the moment, and now we are going to create the deployment. So to create it, we use the kubectl create command -f nginx -deploy. So this is the file, and now we have some errors, and let's check what are the errors and how to solve them. So there is an issue with replicas, you can see, and let's check what is the problem. Okay, this is fine. Yeah, it should be here actually. Okay. Let's try now. Perfect. So you can see that deployments are created. And now if we use kubectl get deploy, and now we have our 4 deployments. Here you can see that just the age is 10 seconds. And here you can see that it has 2 replicas. So let's check that again. Here you can see we have 2 replicas for this Nginx dep rep-2. Okay, and kubectl get pods. And here we have it. So these 2 pods are part of the same deployment. And if I delete one pod here, I'm going to delete this pod, x2jts. Let's see what will happen. Kubectl delete pod, and this pod is deleted, you can see, but we will see that another pod will come up automatically, and which is part of the same deployment. So here you can see that we have these 2 pods, then 779 TTVB, it's already here, but the other pod x2jts, which we deleted, is deleted. However, a new pod has taken its place. So thank you very much for watching, and this video was about how to use YAML files for task automation. And you can see that we were able to successfully create deployment and automate the task to create pods and the replicas. Okay guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope you liked my video. So soon we will be posting our next video about persistent volumes in Kubernetes. Please do subscribe to my channel. Till then, goodbye. God bless.